This is Bill the Butcher coming to you again. And I've got a kind of a simple project I want to show you guys today. That's what this is all about, is just doing simplified butchery at home. And what I've got here in front of me is a top sirloin purchased from a warehouse type store. It's just probably the best and the worst of our food system. It's a nice big piece of meat that doesn't get a lot of respect anymore. Everybody, when they want a fancy steak, they get a ribeye or a New York. They very seldom go for a top sirloin because it's the main thing about it is it's kind of big and intimidating. When you look at the diagrams that come in the packages that tell you how to slice this, they tell you to just make these big slices across here, and there's no way that that's simple for an ordinary person that just working out of his kitchen. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit smaller, show you how you might do this for to put in your freezer or to cut for a large family get-together. It's a nice steak, and it's nicer yet when I'm through cutting it. So let's just give it a start. Here we go. Top sirloin has got two ends to it. This end right here, if you continued on, would be the New York steak. So this is what I call the New York end of the sirloin, and it just tends to be a little bit more tender, with the exception of this bone skin that's on the outside of it. That's really is a tough thing, and you want to get that out of the way. That's when they take the bones out of the sirloin, they just pull it off, and that's tough stuff. It's almost part of the bone. Like it's bone skin, or what the heck they call it. Well, that Latin medical term, I think it's periosteum. Anyway, not good to chew on. So we've got that out of the way, and let's look at the other end. Now the other end is the part that connects to the round of the beef, and it's got a little piece here that continues around. It's a flap. It's actually part of the rump roast, and that's one of the tougher parts of the top sirloin, and the grain runs in the opposite direction from the rest of it. So I'm going to start by taking that off, and you can just see that there's a seam that opens up, and it helps if you feel it on the top. You can feel where it comes to an end, and you drag your knife across there, just a little boning knife, or maybe you could do this all with one knife to make it more simple. I'll just use this larger steak knife, and you can see that this seam opens up, and this piece comes off separately. And we'll deal with it first. Trim a little bit of the fat off it. Put that over in the waste pile. And this is the way it's sat on here. And if you were going to cut this as steaks like they tell you in the store, right across here, this one piece would be cut with the grain, and it's going to make it kind of chewy. So when we take this off, we eliminate that problem. Get rid of a little bit of silver skin that's underneath here. Run your knife underneath it and just kind of trim that up. This will make a nice little pile for the dog. And like I said, if we were to leave this on, it would be cut in this direction, and that would be with the grain, but we're not going to do that. We're going to flip it over, and we can see how the grain runs. It runs like this. So you can see that the grains run like this. So what we want to do is we want to cut across this, and we'll make some nice steaks. And here we go. We'll trim it up and make it into steaks. I'm going to cut them just kind of a normal barbecue sort of thickness, just a little bit shorter than an inch. And let's see. They make a real pretty steak. They're, I don't know, back in the day we used to call them culotte steaks or culottes. However, wherever you are in the country, I call them culottes because that's, I think, the right way. But this is a nice little bunch of steaks. Okay, I'm gonna have to stop for just a second here because I've got a customer to wait on, and I'll be right back with you. All right, we're rolling. We got a little interruption, but you can't run a business without customers. That's just the way it is, and I was glad to have that interruption. Anyway, we made some culotte steaks, or they're sirloin steaks. They're just different than the other sirloin steaks. And we've got some scrap here that we're just going to save for the dog, and then we've got some other scraps that we'll save for something else. Anyway, here we've got this big piece has suddenly become a little smaller, and I explained to you there's one end here. This is the New York end, and then there's the rump end of this thing. I'm just going to cut it in half, right down the center. That makes it a lot easier to deal with. And starting on this rump end, this first cut that I make is kind of a rough one. There's a lot of sinew in that cut. It's not that tough, but it is real sinew, so we're going to save that for another use. But the rest of these will be nice steaks. And by cutting this in half, I give myself a piece that's just a lot easier to work with. You know, for someone at home, you know, you can visualize cutting up something this small, whereas the big piece was harder to deal with. And here we've got another nice little pile of steaks going. And these are about the right size for a hungry guy. They're probably, oh, I imagine 9 ounces a piece, 10 ounces, somewhere in there. Just right for a family get-together. Ladies might want to cut them in half. And then this other half will be cut just the same way. They're going to be a little bit smaller. I use these cotton gloves just because it makes me easier to hang on to the knife. And when you get these all done, just kind of bear in mind that as you get down to that other end, you're getting into the best part of the sirloin. So if you're having the boss over for dinner, you want to serve him one of the ones that's off of this end, preferably right close to the end, because it's just darn near like a New York steak. And when he bites into it and sees that it's nice and tender, he's going to ask you what it is, and you're going to tell him top sirloin, and he's going to know that you aren't getting paid too much, but he's going to be happy that you're smart enough to know a good piece of meat. So you're going to win all the way around. Anyway, here we go. This is a top sirloin, cut into nice steaks. There's little bits of scrap off here that I took off, some pieces that were, you know, like I said, they had too much gristle in them to be called steaks. But you can save them for either some stew. You can kind of pick through them. You can make some stew. If you got a food processor, you could grind them up and make yourself a burger. Or if you're real ambitious about cooking, and you can cut them into real small pieces. And it's all pretty tender stuff, even the gristly parts. And it'd make you some nice stir fry, or if you want to call it that, or if you're a little closer to the border like everybody is in this country, you could call it carne asada. But it's all good stuff. We really didn't waste much, and we got probably $70 or $80 worth of steaks for 35 bucks. So pretty good. We did well. Another simple lesson from Bill the Butcher. Thank you much.